Um, First of all, maybe I'll go from the smaller questions to the bigger ones if I can. Israel doesn't have aspirations to take over the Middle East from the, people sometimes think the Israeli flag, the two blue lines are the Tigris Euphrates on one side and the Nile on the other side, and that everything in between is Israel claims. It's not true. That's not the meaning of the two red lines, the two blue lines. The motif of the flag comes from an Israeli prayer shawl. I mean, Muslims also, it's a little different, have prayer shawls. And the prayer shawl is are blue lines on the prayer shawl that you either wear under your clothes every day, or on the Sabbath you wear them over your clothes. And that's the motif. It has nothing to do with the rivers. So that I think Israel, for example, Israel for 20 years did occupy southern Lebanon, but there was never any idea that we're going to annex southern Lebanon or build settlements there. So Israel's territorial claims are confined to the area between the Mediterranean and the Jordan River. Now here, it's true Israel's demolishing homes, but you have this issue of land ownership. Salim was able to buy land. In principle, Palestinians can own their land. The problem is, though, that that Israel, doesn't recognize deeds of ownership that go back to Ottoman times or British times or Ottoman times. And without getting too much into it, there was a campaign when Jordan had the West Bank. Between 1948 and 1967, the West Bank belonged to Jordan. And they wanted to register Palestinian lands with Jordan. The Palestinians are a farming peasant society, historically. Peasant societies always mistrust governments. They lose their crops to governments, they get forced into the armies. So in the Ottoman Empire, if you registered your land with the government, you could be drafted into the Turkish army. There was always a tension and a conflict, hostility between governments and the local people. That was also true in Jordan. Jordan was an occupying power, and the Palestinians didn't like that either. So that they didn't want to register their lands with Jordan. So Jordan was forcing them to register their lands. They started in the northern part of the West Bank in 1948, and the process of registering was very slow because the Palestinians resisted. And they only got down to about Nablus, about a third of the way down the West Bank when the 1967 war broke out. So what happened was, Israel comes in and says, okay, all the land registered with Jordan will recognize those deeds. All the other deeds of the 75% of the West Bank that wasn't registered, in which they had Ottoman deeds, that doesn't count. So Israel, in a sense, doesn't recognize the ownership of most of the West Bank, Palestinians in most of the West Bank, and that's why it's able to build settlements and to take the land. In one way or another, Israel has expropriated 75% of the West Bank. It's reclassified as state lands. So Palestinians, in effect, live on Israeli state lands that can then be taken at any time. It's a very, very complex system of, like I said, laws and rules and regulations and legal systems. I mean, if anybody's doing a PhD in law as a mechanism for control and oppression, this is the case that you should take. It's layers on layers on layers, again, in which you enmesh the Palestinians. Our idea then is, just to jump to another question, our concept, our analysis is today that the two-state solution is dead. and we have to start moving towards a one-state solution. Now, first of all, I have to say that I'm not a Palestinian. I can't advocate for anything before the Palestinians do. It's their call. And the Palestinians, I think, are in between solutions. On the one hand, they know the two-state solution is gone, but they're hesitating. They haven't shifted yet to the one-state solution. And here, by the way, Hamas plays a role. Hamas is an Islamic political party. It's a part of the Muslim Brotherhood movement that it didn't exactly win the elections in 2006 of the Palestinians, but because of it got about 40% of the vote, but it was able to put together the government. That was then classified by the United States and Israel and Europe as a terrorist organization in order to nullify the electoral results. And so Hamas has been fairly much confined to Gaza and isolated ever since. Hamas's position is fairly pragmatic, actually, but Hamas is in favor of a one-state solution, but a Palestinian state. Not, in other words, they want to liberate Palestine. And once Palestine is liberated, Jews could continue to live in the country, but not as Israelis, as Jews living in Palestine. That's their concept. But Hamas, I think, has I don't know, now it's in a real crisis because of what's happening in Egypt. Egypt just declared the Muslim Brotherhood illegal, and there's fighting in Sinai and dangers to Gaza itself. So Hamas is becoming, I think, marginal in certain ways. Now, in terms of a solution then, again, we have to wait for the Palestinians to advocate. Because moving from two states to one state isn't just some technical thing. The two-state solution, as inadequate as it was, gives the Palestinians a state. They have a country, they have a little country, they have that, they have a flag, they're a part of the international community. In other words, for 100 years, the Palestinians have been struggling for national self-determination. If they give up the two-state solution, it's not a matter of giving it up, it's gone. I mean, Israel eliminated it by its settlements and so on. But the problem is that if you shift to a one-state solution, you're giving up, unless you have the Hamas approach that isn't acceptable. I think it's a non-starter, the idea that Israelis would either leave or wouldn't be Israelis anymore. I don't think that's a realistic solution. But if you move to a one-state solution that's either binational or democratic, it's not a Palestinian state anymore. You see, you're locked into a state with your oppressors, first of all, but it's not a Palestinian state. So the struggle is transformed from a national liberation struggle into a civil rights struggle, like South Africa. I mean, the struggle against apartheid was for civil rights. And I don't think I think the Palestinians are in a